Merhabalar Beğa TV'nin sevgili izleyicileri, Ne Sohbet'in sevgili izleyicileri. Bu hafta çok özel bir konuğumuzla sizlerle beraberiz. Bu hafta konuğumuz benim kendi doktoramı yaptığım ve mezun olduğum Salford Üniversitesi'nin kıymetli rektörü Profesör Doktor Martin Hall ve biraz dünyayı, biraz üniversiteleri, biraz interneti konuşacağız Profesör Martin Hall'la birlikte. Bundan sonrasında ben İngilizce devam etmek istiyorum ve kendisine hoş geldiniz demek istiyorum. Professor Martin Hall, very much welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's an honor and pleasure to host you here in Ne Sohbet, our show in BAA TV. So I think it's your first time in Istanbul?
Yes, it is. It is my first time.
Did you enjoy? How was your impressions about Istanbul?
A lot of snow.
A lot of snow, yeah.
But I enjoyed walking around this morning, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So we are kind of a television channel connected with the Beykent University, and this is one of the foundation universities in Turkey. What's your impression about our TV and our studios and our university?
Oh, I'm very impressed. We've just made a very large investment in TV studios at the University of Salford. We've just built a new faculty, built a new building alongside the BBC.
Yeah.
So I know what television studios look like, and this is obviously a very professional outfit.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Shall we start just by introducing a bit, because I'm also a graduate of the Salford University, about Salford, the area, the university's mission, vision, and so on.
Salford's part of Manchester. Manchester's Britain's second city.
Yeah.
We were founded in the late 1890s, part of the Industrial Revolution in Manchester.
Yeah.
We've always been a university that's concentrated on science and industry.
Yeah.
We were a college of advanced technology. We became a university, got university status in 1967. And we are now a university of around about 25,000 students, 1,000 academic staff.
Yeah.
We concentrate particularly on the built environment, your own area, of course.
Yeah.
We're very strong in that. We are strong in health.
Yeah.
We don't have a medical school, but we work in the other areas of health. And our big new investment is in media and digital futures with this new campus we've just built.
Okay, so as I have visited the area for about a year ago, I know the area is very well developed and it's very near to the Old Trafford Stadium as well. And
we're right next door to Manchester United.
Yeah, next door to Manchester United, and everything is growing very fast in this area, and it's a very modern part of Manchester. And so does it really, this new developments affect the new vision of the university? And what's his, I'll just ask, what's your new vision? What will the future of Salford University be?
We're a university that concentrates on a small number of areas that we aim to do to international standard.
Yeah.
And we also concentrate on the quality of our teaching at all levels. Okay. So our vision is really to be both a national and an international university. That's one of the reasons that I'm here in the Middle East. We want to build our international partnerships. And we have over 3,000 international students from over 80 different countries. Yeah. So that's part of our vision. Yeah. But we want to be a university of the future that's concentrating on the relationship between science, technology, business and industry, and one that really concentrates on innovation, looking to the future.
Yeah. In my point of view, in Beykent and in this university, we see there are several areas that we can really concentrate in our university's vision. One of them is taking everything to digital, everything to next level. Every business will have a digital dimension in the forthcoming years. And everything would very much depend on, in my humble view, into innovative technologies and technology-oriented technology-oriented teaching structures. What do you think about this upcoming vision of universities in terms of as every profession becomes digitally oriented and so on?
I think you're completely correct. We've gone through quite a few stages with the digital revolution. It started back in the 1990s with just getting access to bandwidth. We look back at that now and we think that that was very crude, but at the time, of course, it was revolutionary. We've then gone through a long stage after that. We've had ups and downs. We had the dot-com bubble burst in the late 1990s. That set us back a bit. But I think we're at the threshold of a new revolution in ways of working digitally for two or three reasons. Firstly, of course, access is becoming universally available at very reasonable prices. So we are now able to connect with broadband to almost all parts of the world, often with wireless connections. Secondly, the capacity for storage is essentially infinite. We're now talking about terabytes of data, and we're seeing the price per unit of storage drop through the floor. That enables new applications. And the third thing that's revolutionizing, I think, our digital world is the availability of mobile devices, which are smart, thin interfaces. Now, I think the combination of those three things, which is universal bandwidth, unlimited storage, and mobile devices, is going to change the way that we work in almost every field. So this is not just going to be about media, it's not just going to be about IT, it's going to be about new ways of working. Now, all of our universities, whether in Britain or in Turkey, or anywhere in the Middle East, are going to have to adjust to that.
Yeah, definitely. Because we see in our vision, we see there are several areas that we have to focus on. As you mentioned, one of them is cloud, and all this, everything is now moving forward to the cloud computing, cloud type of information processing, information storage. There is mobile devices, as you mentioned, is everywhere. And one of other focus areas is social media. Social media is growing, like boom, isn't it?
It is indeed. I think it's fair to say that social media has been fundamental to political changes across the Middle East and many other parts of the world. People are able to communicate in different sorts of ways. We talk to our students differently. Email is now seen as something of the past. And social media is affecting the way that people connect with each other, very often favorably, sometimes unfavorably. And again, we need to adapt our practices to social media.
Yeah, definitely. I think our teaching system should focus more on looking at the paradigm, changing paradigms by social media, isn't it? It's changing different paradigms, political management paradigms, technology management paradigms, communication paradigms, I think.
Well, we need to listen to our students, because our students are always ahead of the professors in this respect. So rather than stop your students from doing things with their smartphones or their computers during the lectures, the best thing to do is to find out what they're doing and work out why they want to communicate in that way.
True. It's actually, we are discussing the similar issues here. It's like students now, in terms of students of 2010 and or maybe students of 2020 will be so much different from students of 1980s, which when I was a student there at those times. So yeah, actually they're far more ahead of us in terms of communication, in terms of finding new ways to do business, finding new ways to work, and finding new ways to communicate with each other.
Well, I think that puts pressure on us in universities to increase our standards as well, because in previous forms of communication, you could just about get away with simply providing students with information. And that in some institutions that could actually pass as a course. Now, as you know, of course, you can't do that anymore because our students can get information from wherever they like. They don't need us as their professors to tell them. So I think that the demands on all of our universities to institute higher quality standards are becoming more and more intense as this digital world opens up in front of us.
Yeah, it's a very good point that you make. That comes to my next question, actually. As we talked around in this show, information-sensitive world is becoming more and more information-sensitive every day. What do you think the role of the new university, you know, if you take the keyword university and being universal and being on the high edge research, being on high quality research and so on. But as you said, information is everywhere, so everybody can get information from different resources. So what is the real role of graduate and postgraduate education in this? What's the real notion of the university there?
I think there's a difference between data and knowledge, or information and knowledge. So I think the more and more we can get information everywhere, the more careful we need to be about what it means, of course. Because you can do a search on a search engine and you can get dozens and dozens of hits, but they won't tell you what the quality of that is. So I think in a very information-rich world, there's more and more place for universities to be able to differentiate between different values of that information. And I think a lot of our work now is not so much scouting out scarce information. It's helping ourselves and our students to understand the value of that information and to assess it and to analyze it. So I think that's a changing role. And I believe very strongly that universities become more and more important in that way, because for a professional working out in a modern field, how do they learn how to differentiate between these different sources of information, assess their quality and interpret what they mean? So I think that adding a layer of value over the top of this generally available information is something that's really important. to what we do. I think our universities will change in that respect. I think the other way that we need to be very adaptable is in terms of the courses and qualifications that we offer. Because you and I are both now teaching in subject areas that weren't invented when we first went to university, so we didn't know there was a need for them.
Definitely.
So in a world that's changing so rapidly, I think the university becomes important through people's whole careers of reskilling and training them. So I'm very interested here at your university in your very strong profile in offering postgraduate courses to students who are already in work and employment. And I think for your university, and in fact for my university at Salford, this is something that's very important. We can offer older students who have work experience the opportunity to reskill in critical areas. This is going to be something that's really important for universities in the future.
Thank you very much. It's really, you make various very important points here, which is, you know, our university is also very much focused on lifelong learning and reskilling professionals, and it's really becoming very, very important in terms of the new vision of the schools and the universities. And as far as I understand, it's mainly the universities' roles are becoming more validating resources of information. They refine the quality information. They act like a refinery mechanism for getting better quality information and giving this high quality information to the students. In Salford, when I was there, and it becomes more and more like this in the years that I have come back to Turkey, there were very diverse range of programs, and it's very, in the UK education system, it's very flexible to get a new program. Do you view it as an advantage with these diverse range of program offerings, or does it have any difficulties in terms of management of all these different types of programs?
I think that the diversity in programs is a benefit. I think it gives far more choice. What we do need to do is we need to make sure that potential students can navigate effectively through those programs and make effective choices. And what we tend to be lacking, I think, are the intermediaries or the agencies that help a prospective student to understand what that pathway would mean. So I think diversity is important, but I think it is particularly important that we have a greater ability to assist people who want to get access to our courses to understand what they are really about. So more transparency of information, I think, becomes crucial.
Yeah, I think so. And in last 10 years, United Nations was talking too much on the digital divide, and they're still having programs to prevent digital divide. So, and the internet is becoming, you know, with the projects like One Laptop for a Child and so on, internet is becoming more and more available to everybody now, and everybody's English is becoming like a de facto language of the internet. So, with this in mind, what would you see as UK institutions? Do you believe this online education, online learning is important, and do we have to spend more on this?
I think, let me go back a little bit to the question of the digital divide, because I think it is important to get that in the right context. I mean, quite often the digital divide is portrayed as a distinction between what used to be called the first world and what's called the third world. I think that's a misrepresentation of what goes on. Believe me, in Britain, there are as many people who don't have access to the internet in inner cities as there are in other parts of the world. So we have as much a challenge within our inner cities to give people access to good information. So I'm suspicious of these easy divisions that say that you are either in the developed world or the undeveloped world. I think it's far more complicated than that. I do think that we're rapidly getting to the point where a very significant number of people will get access to information, to the internet, by readily available mobile devices that give a reasonable standard of bandwidth. So I think that issue is close to being solved. I mean, we've got a way to go still, but I think it's being close to being solved. And I think we will get to the point of one computer, one child. We're seeing good projects being laid out. And of course, the more that we do have broadband available, the more that we are going to have simpler devices at the other end, because it's not going to make sense to have a very sophisticated laptop at one end when you can do anything in the cloud, and that's going to be the shift. So I think that's coming. What has always happened, I think, in the history of the internet, which of course is a very short history, is that the development of quality content has always lagged behind the expansion of the technology.
True.
And at the moment, we are not using the available technology that we have to the full advantage for the courses that we need to offer.
Yeah.
So universities, I think, have got a very important role to play in developing quality content to make sure that we reach a full range of our students.
Okay, but I think it's like very much thank you for this very informative answer. I think it's more of not being regulative but being supportive of the technology, isn't it? Just you have to develop some resources or pools of information, and then you create some types of resources that are trustable because generated by the academics, people who are working in the area for several years and who are publishing academic research. And so university becomes like a place that's where you can find good quality and trustable type of information. I think that is how this paradigm shift will give the role to the universities, I think, isn't it?
Yes, I think that's right. A university needs to become a trusted partner in that respect. And I think that's why the regulation of quality of our universities is so important, because if you present yourself as a university, people out there need to know that you are legitimate, that the people who work for you are well qualified, they do have that expertise, they have an independence of mind, so they can give you an opinion about that. And I think that role of the university is important. There's another important point as well, of course, about universities and the internet, and that is that the internet really does know and doesn't respect any boundaries. Now, governments that attempt to restrict access to the internet usually find that quick, smart young people in their own populations find very easy ways to get around that.
Definitely.
And those attempts are really doomed to failure. In a way, what the internet's doing is taking us back to the early medieval idea of the university, which was a university without borders. And we can interact. So, I mean, we, in the future, can collaborate on a program between Turkey and the United Kingdom. We can be working across common platforms to deliver to common sets of students. The only thing that works against us is time differences. Which means somebody's got to get up very early in the morning.
I've seen some programs in the US now that are becoming like multicultural and multinational, with always video conferencing rooms everywhere. Students are sitting in another country, and it's really aligning with the new business style. I will ask you the next question, but first of all, in that sense, I'd like to ask more on the open source content and open courseware initiatives. Do you have it in South Africa, or do you support such initiatives?
I very much support them, and they're very interesting. The major English language open content initiatives, of course, have come out of MIT in America, the Open University in Britain, and some other people as well. And you can now, of course, go and get wonderful content available. The thing that you can't get, of course, is you can't get the qualification from MIT without paying the fee. And it'll still cost you a great deal of money to have an MIT degree, even though you can get the course content. So they've been very clever. I think that I'm a very strong believer in open content. I don't think that the role of universities is to regulate access to content. I think that our role is to regulate quality, as we've discussed previously. Obviously, there are intellectual property issues, and those must be respected in terms of acknowledgement of resources, and we have to be careful about that. But I think that open content and open data are going to drive us forward in the future in ways that will open up possibilities that we can only really dream about at the moment.
Okay, so this actually triggers another question, but this will be the next one. But this one should be like, because the working styles are changing, because in the engineering world that we are in, so we can just do a part of work here, outsource some part of work in India, and you can take it the next day. So do you think the university system should focus on a way that's to teach how to survive in this international global business environment?
Yes, I mean, let me give you an example, because I think that this sort of interaction leads to better quality teaching. At Salford, we run a number of programs that exist in real-time collaboration between different students. We have a very good and well-established online PhD program called the Merit Program, which has been running now for 10 or 15 years. And what we find is that the students who register for our PhD using the Merit Program actually have a greater tendency to pass and do well than students who do a conventional PhD. The end result's exactly the same. They write a dissertation to the same standards, they're examined in the same way. And one of the reasons why that happens is because they get a better education. And one of the reasons they get a better education is because they will learn among a group of fellow students, 5 or 6 or 10 of them, who are distributed all over the world, and each one of those students brings their own local experience into the classroom. And so what you get by using collaborative online techniques is you get groups of students who might come from 4 or 5 different countries, and they bring the richness of their local experience to bear. So for example, it will be tremendously exciting to be doing joint programs, for example, in TV production. We've invested a lot in TV production. Your universities invest in TV production. But wouldn't it be fascinating for a group of students, some of whom had been born and brought up here in Istanbul, others who'd been born and brought up in Salford and Manchester, to be working together in real time, connected on a common platform. They would then begin to understand how to interact in the world, to talk across different language barriers, and that's what education should be about.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very nice idea, and we will support it fully. Yeah, and they can even maybe make shows together on the internet at the same time. So it's an also interesting opportunity for both of us, I think. So the world is becoming like information intensive, and everybody can have access to information coming from different devices, and open data initiatives are becoming more and more popular. So what do you think, let me ask from the perspective of not a vice chancellor, but of a scientist, let's say. In the future, all these things providing information, and information will be everywhere, as mentioned by different software companies like IBM. So everywhere, everything, every subject, every object is an information provider. So what will the new world be in terms of information provision and access to information? What's your vision?
Well, I'm an optimist, and I'm sure you're an optimist, and I think the world will be wonderful if we can do that. I think the notion of connecting together rich information about objects and making that available in networks and webs is truly exciting. And you, of course, come to it from the point of view of your interest in the construction industry. Now, I come to it as an archaeologist, which is my training, and this is why I should have been, of course, in Istanbul many years ago, because it's a great place to be as an archaeologist. But just imagine, for example, a world in which you could go around Istanbul with its tremendously interesting history, and every building that you saw had an information resource attached to it. So that it was all there, and you're walking around with a mobile device, and the mobile device knows where you are, and as a result of that, you're standing next to an object or a statue or a sculpture or a building, and on your mobile device you can get access to any information about that. Now, immediately what you've done is you've created interoperability between some very complicated databases. You've produced a hugely interesting educational resource which deepens knowledge of the area. You'll probably transform the tourist industry in doing so. You will put your cultural heritage on the map, tremendously important for a country like Turkey, a city like Istanbul. And you've got fundamental change. Now, that's just in one area. Clearly, it would transform building design, and architecture and construction. I think it would make it far more efficient. I would imagine the efficiency savings are 10 to 15 to 20%. That will bring down costs, tremendously important. Very important applications in terms of climate change. It would enable us to measure and monitor carbon emissions in ways that we are not able to at the moment. Now, for all of us, we have to address that, otherwise there's not going to be a planet in the future. So these sorts of applications and I would insist that those data sources have to be open, because if we've got people patrolling the boundaries of that data everywhere, we can't make the connections to the public benefit. Now, if we can make that happen, we can drive efficiencies in working and transform the depth of our knowledge of the world, which I think would be really very exciting indeed.
So your view is mainly, you mentioned that it's mainly open source initiatives are key of importance. It's kind of sine qua non for
the combination of open source, open data, open content, and we need new legislation, new regulation to manage intellectual property in new and different ways. So we need mechanisms that manage intellectual property in ways that don't put up boundaries around intellectual property restricting access, but give people who develop things rewards according to the pattern of use. And we need new devices for doing that.
Okay. Coming from that, I think another issue to be touched is service provision now becoming more and more important in this world compared to production of the goods and selling of. So it's mainly, the world is mainly becoming kind of service provision oriented economy. What do you think in terms of where there is so IT related developments, everything is moving more into service provision. So I think in our education systems we should focus more on how to provide better services to citizens, to communities and so on.
I think that's right, although economies as they move to adjust to this new world, and clearly this will be an important issue for a country like Turkey. I think it's a very important issue at the moment for Britain as well. We have to be quite careful on the quality of what those service industries are.
Okay.
So they have to be, I think in my view, service industries that have a production function and not just a consumption function. This is why I think the thing we've been talking about around the area of information management is so important, because those services have a production function in the sense that they drive efficiencies and their gains. Of course, and we also need to get those service industries, and this again will be important to Turkey, pushing back to food industries so that we are increasing basic productivity. Otherwise we're all going to become consumers and no one's going to be a producer. So I think that there are major economic shifts going on that are really of quite a fundamental nature as the world's changing.
I think that was one of the main reasons behind this economical problems, because it's all on consumption is increasing and production is not increasing, and service provision is kind of not very well evaluated all over the world, and it's maybe really there's some unbalanced issues there.
There are, but again, going back to Salford, in a way, when the University of Salford began to develop its identity at the end of the 1890s into the early 20th century, we could at the University of Salford form our industry associations because all the businesses were 10 minutes walk away in a large industrial park called Trafford Park, one of the big first industrial estates in the world, and they were there. So, you know, the advanced manufacturing that drove the Industrial Revolution, I mean, things were being built, pumps, engines, machines were being built just down the road. So when the university person wanted to go and work with them, they worked down the road into a workshop. Now, those just aren't there anymore. They're all in South India or China. So we are now working in an interconnected world, and what we do need to do is to recognize that in these shifts that are going on, production has moved to very different areas. Now, going back to our key topic here of universities, it means we've all got to be international. We cannot afford just to be local, because our students and our research increasingly must be international.
True. So, as a last minute question, this is just our director tells that we have only 1 minute to go. So, as far as I understand from all these discussions around, so the universities was at the middle of the industry hub, but now I think what I understand is the universities should be in the middle of the digital information exchange hub. I think that's how it will drive the new vision of the university.
Well, we've got a nice phrase for that. I mean, we started off around the port of Manchester, and now we're working towards the portal of the digital revolution, and that's absolutely right.
Okay, thank you very much for joining the show, Professor. It was a pleasure and honor hosting you here in MEA TV, and hope you'll come again to visit us.
I most certainly will.
Thank you. Thank you. Sevgili izleyicilerimiz, bugün konuğumuz, çok kıymetli konuğumuz Profesör Martin Hall, University of Salford'ın değerli rektörüydü. Bizlerle zahmet ettiler, birlikte oldular. BA TV stüdyolarında kendilerine çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Ve tabii ki sizlere de çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Bir Nesil Sohbet'in daha bu hafta sonuna geliyoruz. Güzel bir hafta ve güzel bir hafta sonu diliyoruz sizlere.